be DK Metcalf, up 7.1 spots. New ADP, 35.8. Last year finished as the wide receiver, 21 in PPR. 1,000-yard season, but only 66 receptions. That was actually the second fewest among wide receivers with 1,000 yards. George Pickens would take the crown on that one. Pete, what are your thoughts here on the upward trend for DK Metcalf?
It kind of bums me out because I've gotten sniped on Metcalf in a lot of my drafts. I really haven't had a chance to grab him. He's a good receiver.
Uh-oh. Is he freezing up?
If you go running back wide.
Pete, we're losing you.
Did I click out there for a second?
You just were
Your
freezing.
internet's clicking out.
Yeah.
Am I here
that
now?
Looked like an ad for that looked like an ad for a home internet.
All right,
commercial.
hold on.
All right, let's just go to Anthony.
All right.
Anthony,
All right.
what says you?
All right, have Anthony go first.
Go ahead, Anthony.
So DK Metcalf is there is a good part of DK Metcalf, right? Like if we go back 2020, that was his big year, 1,300 yards receiving on 83 receptions, 1,783 air yards, 10 touchdowns, wide receiver 10 in fantasy points per game. Since that season, he's had wide receiver points per game finishes of 20, 24, and 22 in order. I believe the real DK Metcalf is probably closer to what we've seen in the past 3 seasons, and that 2020 year where he popped is more of an outlier. Look at his yardage totals. 967, 1048, 1114, touchdowns, 12, 6, and 8. That's really who DK Metcalf is. I wouldn't call him a complete wide receiver. Now, what's good about DK Metcalf this year? We have a system change with Ben Grubb coming from Washington. They're going to throw the football. They're going to throw the football a lot. Can Geno Smith, can he go back to that player he was a few years ago when he rejuvenated his career? They also have Sam Howell and Sam Howell, he held his own in Washington. He was actually a solid fantasy quarterback in Washington. So we know Sam Howell can sling it. He'll make some mistakes. So I'm fine with the quarterback play there. The thing that makes me pump the brakes on DK Metcalf at his ADP, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think this wide receiver in JSN entering year 2, there's a path to where he passes DK Metcalf as the lead receiver on this team. I know a lot of people scoff at that, but he has the first round pedigree, Ohio State product, excellent in college. Last year, it took him a little while to get going, but he's more of a complete wide receiver. And I see JSN ultimately being the guy, if not at some point this year, then at least next year. So I'm a little bit hesitant on DK Metcalf. And yeah, his ADP is going up. People are buying in. I'm not. I like other wide receivers going around DK Metcalf for me to have to pay up almost another full round. Not a full round, but a round and a half to get him.
Yeah.
Like there's just other players I like more.
Sure.
That have a better track record.
Okay. And then before I kick it back to Pete to check his connection, I will just say, Robert, we'll get to your keeper league question in a second, but he did also say targets are the issue. Lockett and Metcalf close to the same each year. And because they both had a 22% target share last year. I do think Jackson Smith-Njigba goes up in that target share from 17%. I think that eats more into Tyler Lockett, though, than it does DK Metcalf. I'm not really scoffing at what your comment about Jackson Smith being the wide receiver 1 by the end of the year for Seattle. If I had to put money on it, I would say it's probably still DK, but it'll be close, though. I think it'll be close, and then that's when you get into this discussion about is the price right for DK Metcalf. So I get it. Pete, is your connection doing good or shitty?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Yeah, so I'm excited about Grubb coming into this offense. I think it helps DK Metcalf. When you compare 2020 to even just 2021, 2021 he had more touchdowns than he did in 2020. He had 12. And in 2020, he had 10. But in 2020, it was the best year of his career. He averaged 17 points a game, 10th in the NFL. And in 2021, he averaged 14.4, and he was 20th in the NFL, right? 2 more touchdowns, yet still average less points. The main thing there is the receiving yards, right? And it's the average depth of target. And I do think that this offense, they're going to want to push the ball down the field a lot more than they have in the past. If you watched Washington play, they consistently threw the ball down the field and pushed it. So I do think that targets won't be an issue because I think they're going to be up there in the top 10 to top 15 in the league for passing attempts. Their defense is not very good, though they did bring in, I think, McDonald from Baltimore. So that could turn them around. They're not that talented, but maybe a better coach makes them be in closer games and not in shootouts.
Sure.
But either way, I think Metcalf's average depth of target is going to be the biggest factor. And if they're going to push the ball down the field, it's really about the yards for him. He hasn't really had an issue getting into the end zone. He had 8 touchdowns last year, and his air yards have been pretty high. 1,500 air yards last year, 1,600 the year before that, 1,600, 1,700. Like, this is a guy that like the team targets down the field. Geno was hurt last year, and so with a bump in terms of coordinator and quarterback play, I think it should help Metcalf. And something I read, I think this was a month ago, his ADP, Metcalf has beat his ADP out every single season by a few spots. So he's not crushing his ADP, but he's also not disappointing you at where he's going. He's a little expensive, you could say, but I'm totally okay taking a swing on him. And I also like JSN too. I don't want Tyler Lockett unless I'm playing best ball, but I do like JSN to Anthony's point this year. So yeah, I'm in on Metcalf's price. I don't mind him going a little higher. I just haven't really been able to acquire him anyway because he's been expensive. So
Anthony, did you have a rebuttal, or did we want to get to a couple questions quick?
Now, let's get to a few questions. I mean,
Okay.
I think we have differing opinions on DK Metcalf just because he's had that, when a player has that one big year, there's a lot of fantasy managers that are chasing that big year. And since then, we've had 3 years, good years. But I just, when we're paying up for a DK at this point, and we're seeing this ADP rise, why is it rising? What is the consensus digging into? Is it Grubb? Is it a bounce back from Geno Smith? Is it Tyler Lockett another year older? Because one thing I do want to know, where Pete said it brought about the defense, if the defense gets better, are they going to have to throw as much? So that can actually hurt the ceilings of these wide receivers if McDonald can turn this defense around. So, a wide range of outcomes with DK Metcalf.
The last thing I'd say is they do play in a division with pretty bad defenses. Arizona has a defensive coach. They're a middle of the pack defense. The Rams are going to get significantly worse with Aaron Donald retiring. They lost a lot of their stars. And you got to figure that who is it? Arizona, Seattle,
49ers.
49ers. Yeah.
Watch what you say here. Watch what you say about mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, between the Rams, but the Rams and the Arizona just plays tough, but they don't have a lot of studs on that defense either.